I'm gonna prank Kirby when they get home. Ha, ha, ha. What are you doing? Why, look, it's that mascot I never use. I'm just waiting for Kirby to get here for their 32nd anniversary. You, do realize it's April 28th in Japan, right? This should have been celebrated yesterday. Happy birthday, Kirby! 32 years of amazing games and still going strong. We're still only about 2 years off from the landmark release of Kirby and the Forgotten Land, but so much else has happened in the years prior to that, and so much has happened and will happen since. Kirby's anniversary is always a great time, and while we've had our fun for 32 years, I can't wait for 32 more. But have these games always actually been good? Back in the days of old, and by that I mean like, I don't know, 2004, there was a pretty common opinion that, while a very few Kirby games were exceptional, none of them were actually bad. That has certainly been put to the test in recent years, with many citing most of these games weren't actually very good, and the more recent entries are when the series started to get really consistent. Return to Dreamland was basically a more modern take on a Superstar-esque game, with everything Triple Deluxe and onward feeling a lot more modern in many ways. I love the classic era of Kirby, and stand by that all of these games, spin-offs or not, are at least passably decent. But if this were just an opinion piece, some loony puppo going on about the old days, it wouldn't be all that interesting. I feel like subscribing to this channel and liking the video if you enjoy Kirby and Kirby speedrunning content is way more fascinating, especially to make sure you aren't one of the meanie pants 34% who aren't subscribed. Just saying. But to put my usual spin on things, I'm going to be looking at the 6 main Kirby titles that make up the classic era of Kirby. The Dreamland Trilogy, Crystal Shards, Adventure, and Superstar. Get some spin-offs in there too, because why not? And see what makes these games good or bad, or the insane third thing that nobody's ever thought of except for me, because I'm such a smart pup. Somewhere in between. Now, some ground rules before we do begin. First, ultimately, this is all just my opinion. I'm only one pup. I can like what I like and still present less personal points. Although, have you seen some of the adorable fan art that I have? That's gotta add some influence to my opinions, right? Anyway, second, and more importantly, longtime channel veterans, pupperins if you will, may remember I uploaded a video about the classic Kirby games race a while back. That video is more about the act of running 6 games in a row and less about asking if they actually hold up. Check that video out if you're interested, but trust me, these are 2 very different videos. You don't have to worry about watching that one. Lastly, and even more importantly, wowee, if you really enjoy these videos and want to go the extra mile, please consider becoming a puptron and support me on Patreon, linked in the description. You get some really neat perks, like early access to videos such as this one. Special thanks to my head-patting Fluffle fan puptrons Biohazard, Vilafar, the Serval that likes strawberry Pop-Tarts, and Lydia Scribe. I love you all. So while I'd very much like to spotlight these games individually, we need to ask the big question first. What actually makes the classic games fun to speedrun? Defining what a classic Kirby game is, that's easy enough. The Dream Collection goes up to Crystal Shards, and the only pre-anime game that followed that was Tilt and Tumble, so using Dreamland as our starting point, it's the first game. I'm explaining this because I love you, and even then, it's painfully obvious. And Tilt and Tumble as our cutoff, that makes sense. But is there a common link that makes all of, or at least most, of these games speedrun friendly, or is this just as scattered and messy as the dinner table after I eat my meals? Nobody's gotta eat too, you know. The good news is, yes, there are things that set the classics apart from what came later. Notably, the oldest games definitely take advantage of shall we say, weaker hardware. There's a lot of unintended speed strats you can take advantage of in these games that the devs just never intended. Obviously, glitches stand out the most, especially in a game like Adventure. There is the UFO glitch, stone credits warp, pause screen enemy loading, wall clipping, floor clipping, even something more niche like the 3DS exclusive day-to-day full heal. Of course, there's loads of crazy stuff that aren't related to glitching, like shredding boss health bars with Tornado due to the hit lag, RNG manipulation with Ball for the day-to-day fight, stuff like that. You have a sense of control with these games that, while really hard to master, you don't get from future titles. On the opposite end, many of these runs tend to be much simpler than what would come later. I say this a lot, but despite what many people think about Kirby, speedrunning these games, pretty dang tough. This holds true for the classics as well, but actually understanding the basics and completing a reasonable run is a big selling point for a lot of these. There's obviously Dreamland 1, a run that realistically shouldn't take you over 20 minutes, but even longer runs like Dreamland 2 or Dreamland 3 are very easy to understand. Let's not limit to any percent either. There's Adventure NCA, or no copy ability, shameless plug on this video I recently made about that. A Dreamland 2 best ending that's largely similar to any percent in many ways. A Tilt and Tumble Hundo is straightforward if you can handle the controls. And not to mention, a lot of these games were ahead of their time in tracking IGT, or in-game time, for certain modes. I think Superstar Stacker Story Mode, Kirby Superstar Arena, that kind of thing. The IGT is the savior of speedruns, like the game is literally tracking your time, you want to go faster, and it's great to see Kirby embrace that so early. So the classics had a good blend of advanced tech mix, haha, get it, it's a Kirby reference, with simplistic gameplay to make them welcoming and fun. Sure, they're mostly pretty difficult games, but when starting out, I wouldn't describe any of them as brutal, frustrating, anything like that. Are they shorter or longer than the runs that would come later? This could be good or bad depending on how you want to look at it, but the length of these runs, they're kind of all over the place. Dreamland 1 is obviously super short, but categories like Dreamland 3 Hundo, Superstar Stacker Hundo, and Block Ball Best Ending all take nearly an hour, if not longer. Block Ball is the only one that doesn't actually take a full hour, at least for a world record, but come on, when am I ever going to bring up this game again? Anyway, you also have much shorter categories like Dreamland 2 Best Ending, Adventure Hundo, and Kirby's Block Ball any percent. I didn't want to use any percents for this example, but like, come on, when am I going to bring up this game again? Okay, so even if we have no idea how long these runs are going to be, we know these runs reward practice, but are also welcoming with their simplicity. Neat. But did you know I have more jargon ready to spout about these games at large? I have a dictionary of Kirby in my brain, trust me. We'll talk about these games individually soon enough, but for now, fun little fact. Not only does the hardware make these games easier to cheese, it also makes them easier to break. While most aren't official, there are speedruns dedicated to crashing them as fast as you can, no holds barred. Of course, by crashing, I mean soft lock, making the game not work. I'm mostly bringing this up because I haven't talked about Superstar yet, and yeah, wow, you can crash this game in under a minute if you're epic enough. If you really wanted to crash or soft lock, say, Adventure or Dreamland 3, though, yeah, you can do that too. You technically can in Kirby 64 if you have NSO, but that's been patched. Boo. And by boo, I mean, why was that a thing to begin with? There's obviously a lot more to what makes a game, and obviously a speedrun, than just a few common links, but I think we've painted a pretty broad picture of what playing these games is like. And sure, not all of these hold true. A game like Crystal Shards has very little in the way of glitches, a game like Dream Course is hard no matter what, and try as you might, you're not going to be crashing Dreamland 1 anytime soon. Still, the general image and vibes I have of the classic Kirby speedruns is that they are very, very silly, but give the most back to you, the runner, in return for the effort you put in. Superstar by itself has more to offer than some entire games in the series because of the abilities, the jank, different modes, all that stuff, to name one example. Even a game like Tilt and Tumble, the funny gyro game where you move Kirby around, jump, and do nothing else, has tons to offer, mostly revolving around how insane that jump is. I do have a Tilt and Tumble, or a TNT, video dedicated to just how silly the jump is, if you're interested. With that, how do the actual games themselves hold up? Thankfully, the main series games all hold up remarkably well as fun and unique speed games. All of their any percents are worth praising, but the obvious winner as far as accessibility goes is Dreamland 1. I talk about it a lot, and I won't yap about the obvious 20-minute game stuff that I already yapped about. Whoops. But don't sleep on the Dark Matter trilogy either. Dreamland 2 any percent pushes the Game Boy's speed to its limit. Dreamland 3 will blow your mind with how quickly Ku can go zoomies through the air, and Crystal Shard gives you so much just based on one ability, that ability being burning. Adventure and Superstar, on the other hand, offer something far more tantalizing than those games: fast-paced action. Speedrunning the other games is all well and good, but going fast in a game with movement that actually encourages you to go fast is special. I know Adventure is archaic and the game can lag a lot, but if you want a good time, just grab Tornado early. Like, a mix is ideal, but you get it for free later, so whatever. And try zooming with Tornado while being enemies at the same time. It reduces the lag and it makes you feel like a champ. If you want another fun way of doing this, zoomies through better building with high jump. It's the same appeal as Tornado, but you're moving up instead of right. Or left. Sometimes you move left. And if you think Adventure's nuts, well, that's because it is, but you won't be thinking about that for very long when you get a look at Superstar. Everything was tuned up to 11 here, and while it's been said in the past, it really is crazy that this came out in 1996, when every other game like it, barring its excellent remake, took until 2011 or later. And I am even talking from a speedrunning point of view here. Before Forgotten Land, just name me a Kirby game where Crash Kirby saves you time. Because yeah, it does in Superstar. Specifically for skipping the heavy lobster fight cutscene, and not the fight itself, although it does that too, just the back and forth with the Mennonite Krill. And while that's arguably the most bizarre skip, at least outside of the super out there stuff like Crash the Game percent, it's just scratching the surface. But why exactly have these games and their runs aged so well? Sure, they're fun, but it's a disservice to say a speedrun as good as, say, Adventure UFO any percent is just fun. And while a part of that is because I really like them, and saying you disagree with a puppy would make me very, very sad, there's obviously a lot more going on. I alluded to this earlier, but to actually go into more detail on it, wow, an in-depth and strongly opinionated editorial going into detail on something, surprise puppy face! These runs truly capture the essence of what makes Kirby games, you know, the gameplay, not just saying that you can kill boomers in Dreamland 1 and calling it a day, an experience that anybody can enjoy. Very easy to pick up and learn, but the more you put into them to get better, the more difficult and more rewarding they get. This is actually the most prominent reason why I think these speedruns stand the test of time. Some of them for over 30 years. And granted, this is something that can be said about many games. For the most obvious Nintendo comparison, Mario games, while harder than Kirby, don't smirk you in the face and scream about how difficult they are. They're still largely approachable and offer a lot to those who want to get better. What makes Kirby so special is that not only are these games even more approachable and newcomer-friendly than your Marios, but in most cases, the skill ceiling is even higher too. And if you've seen a Mario speedrun, you know those can get totally insane. But even on top of that, because of the way Kirby games work, what with copy abilities and all, you can tailor the difficulty of the experience to your liking. I always tell people all it takes to speedrun is a game and a stopwatch. Maybe a VHS to record it on too, but only if you're epic. And, like, really old. This is the core of why the classics are so good for speedrunning, and while it's crazy that it took half the video for me to say that, I have my reasons. First of all, look, I gotta cram a lot of jokes into these things, okay? There's a lot to talk about with these games, even if they're unrelated to the core of what makes them amazing. Waiting until now to focus on this point allows me to, like, actually focus on these games to explain why speedrunning them is fun for anyone and everyone of all skill levels. For example, I talk about Tornado so much in Kirby's Adventure. actually, you know what? It's actually been a minute, so instead of derailing you to another video, I'm gonna hold back my primal urges to ask you with cute puppy eyes to watch another video, and instead tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a pink puffball named Kirby. Kirby was a jolly fellow who wanted nothing more than to spin around really, really fast. Unfortunately, Kirby was much better at jumping off angled slopes than spinning. Check out this video to see. No, I said it wouldn't. We're not doing this. That is until one day, Kirby witnessed a mighty tornado. Spinning like no tomorrow, stopping for nothing. Things that would hurt any other enemy standing in Kirby's way wouldn't affect this tornado at all. So Kirby, using their adaptability and their hungry tummy, became Tornado Kirby. Tornado in Adventure is really, really good because not only is it fast, it's also invulnerable during the whole thing. Aside from grabs from a boss like Rolling Turtle, falling into a bottomless pit, and specific obstacles like spikes, nothing can deal damage to Tornado, giving you a fast tool that deals strong damage, can't be hurt, and oh, did I mention, you can use it again after the attack ends immediately. It may not look like it, but trusty this puppy, there is no cooldown. So, what's the catch here? Oh, nothing. Well, except that you don't get it until 2-1 or Ice Cream Island 1, meaning that you're much slower than you would be otherwise until then. You can mix for it in the first half of the first level of the first world, Vegetable Valley, but you need to set up these two Waddle-Doo, and then after you inhale them both, you need to nail a 4-frame input, and of course, once you get Tornado, you need to make sure that you don't lose it. It's a lot. And not to mention, even if you do wait until 2-1, Butter Building, which is right after, is all about moving up, making High Jump strictly better than Tornado for certain parts. Not all of it, of course, but if you want Tornado back, you need to set up another mix with some Starmans on a rotating building, then nail another 4-frame input, make sure you don't lose it, blah, 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 so on and so forth. You see what I'm getting at. Tornado is a delight to use, and learning the setups isn't impossibly difficult, but would you rather practice all of that, or just go ability-less until you can get Tornado in the level after you beat Wispy? I'd be lying if I said not going for a mix was tempting. I wouldn't be a Larkspur liar unlike Wispy, who apparently is, despite having no resemblance to Larkspur, but whatever. But we're opening another can of worms here. In 1-3, you can get Burning, which is faster than going at it with normal, but 1-4 becomes a lot more difficult with trying to keep Burning in mind. And Normal and Tornado are a lot easier, but the former is slower, and the entire point of this bit here is because we can't be bothered to mix for the latter. My point is, do you see how Adventure can be so customized depending on what you want to do? And we haven't even touched on this stuff after Vegetable Valley. You can keep High Jump throughout all of Butter Building and ditch it for UFO or Tornado in 4-1 or Grave Gardens 1. In any of the levels where you can get UFO, it's always easier to take it and give the level your best possible zoomies and just accept the time loss in the future levels, or at least until you can get Tornado back. And despite the consistency and hype of using Ball for day-to-day, you don't even have to learn RNG manip and just stick with Tornado. I don't want to get into the unviable stuff, don't use laser kids, but you're not limited to very much in these runs at all until you really want to start pushing yourself. That's just Adventure though. What about a game like Crystal Shards, where I literally said that you only use Burning or Double Burning? You're burning to know the answer, I'm sure, so while burning, you're burning by burning and burning. Sorry about that. I got a little lost in the sauce there for a moment. Lost in the burning sauce. Kirby 64 may not have as many examples, but the differences between the two burnings can't be emphasized enough. Double burning is a beginner's best friend, and truth be told, is all someone playing for fun needs to get decent to good times. It's the complexities of solo burning, as well as some knowledge related to positioning for double burning, stuff like that, that will keep those gunning to be the best of the best coming back. To keep it simple, double burning takes a while to start, lasts a while, and has this long period at the end where Kirby just kinda can't do anything. They fall, question their life choices, then realize, hey, you know, I've been doing pretty good in life. I shouldn't doubt myself so much before being able to light themselves on fire again. We should all do what Kirby does here. Not the fire part, but whatever. I'm explaining the joke now. Solo burning, on the other hand, starts and ends immediately. Kirby's more confident than ever, I guess. The trade-off is that, with the increased speed, comes a far shorter duration. It doesn't travel nearly as far, but what makes it special and, in many cases, faster than double burning is that lack of end speed. You can cancel the ending into an air puff, immediately puff cancel, which is just puffing, there's no canceling being done, but I don't know, it sounded cool in my head, and using solo burning again. Obviously, double burning can't do this and suffers a bit because of that, but how good that distance it goes by itself cannot be understated enough. There are, admittedly, sometimes you ditch the burnings, but since Kirby 64 doesn't have mixing, in the traditional sense at least, actually getting it back is super easy and worth going for, regardless of your skill level. With that in mind, it doesn't relate much to the video, but I really want to bring up the solo bomb strat for Acro. I'm doing it in the video now, if you want to take a look. It's just so funny. I have always loved doing this. I can't recommend it enough. And of course, with all of this, I'm talking about just any percent, but the ability variety for Hundo, or best ending, ups the skill requirements even higher, with even more ability combos to mess with. So that's all cool, but to go even further beyond, we can bring up Kirby's Dream Land. I've been talking about this game a lot recently, so I'm gonna keep this very brief, but the super cool tech in this game ranges from simple and funny to deeply rich and extraordinarily satisfying. I talk about Curry Kill all the time because it's like my favorite thing ever. I am naming my first puppy Curry Kill, just you all wait, but it isn't all that this game offers. RNG manip is insane in this game, and by itself would make any runner who wants to push themselves and this game way past their limits ask to have it injected into their veins. That's probably an illegal speedrunning move. I'm actually like poking my arm right where you would like inject a needle, and it kind of hurts actually. Oh, we're gonna let that slide and just move on. I haven't injected RNG manip into my veins, so I'm still Kirby's Dream Land legal. Arguably, the most skill-intensive time save of them all, even if it isn't as flashy as Curry Kill, is the double star you can use against Dedede. See, when you inhale 2 stars in this game, it doesn't shoot out 2 to deal more damage like in future games. But if you press down after shooting out a star left behind by a Dedede attack, you'll do what runners call a task spit. I'm not a history book, so I'm not going to tell you why it's called that, but once you do this, if Dedede decides to jump, you can position yourself close to where he's going to land, and as he's landing, move towards him while inhaling. Using this, you can inhale a star and then automatically inhale the second, this giving you 2 hits. This also works for Kracko EX, and if you're lucky enough, Curry Kill, baby! Weird stuff like damage boosting through the World 5 Gordos before the boss rematches are also things that certainly exist too, but I feel like those are self-explanatory. I don't have to explain all of these, alright? Point is, despite the world record being under 10 minutes, which I'm sure would make many people assume that it's just really simple, it's actually insane when over 100 people have a time of like 15 minutes. The only game out of the classics that teeters a little too far into the "oh wait, this is difficult and not all that approachable actually," is Superstar, but I still wouldn't argue by all that much. There are some brutally difficult tricks and glitches that you're gonna need to pull off, but as I've been saying this whole video, these aren't tricks you really need to worry about if you don't want to push yourself and the game to your limits. Sure, when learning GCO Hundo, I injured myself trying to mash hard enough to do the skip you're seeing me try to do on screen, but I don't have to do it. I love KSS, but I'm content just doing the slower, but not that much slower actually, alternative, because, you know what, I find that more fun. And less painful. Yeah, a lot less painful. Still, the game doesn't pull any punches. It has the biggest gap between just having fun casually running and pedal to the metal, we gotta go! Out of all the classics. Simple looking tricks like bouncing off helpers to punch a boss so hard in the butt you insta-kill them may look easy, and yes, that is what you do. I explained it in this video here, so go watch, but it's a lot tougher than it looks to get the timing and positioning down, especially when failing is so costly. On the flip side, this is a Dynablade wall clip that skips an entire auto-scroller that looks insanely difficult to set up. In reality, it's actually kinda easy. Just fall into this hole and help her jump off Capsule J, no disrespect intended. Then float until the helper grabs you. Go to this gap here, then move to the right a bit before flicking your controller to the left. Drop the helper, keep on floating, and voila! Auto-scroller skip. But not every trick to going fast in this game even looks hard. For example, the computer virus is usually a strict, execution-heavy battle that can really punish you for making mistakes. But in Milky Way Wish's Kirby Superstar, it's easy. You can just use Hammer Toss to deal the same damage that Hammer Flip would, then just get Hammer Pack from the ability select and Hammer Toss again. Or if you're going full hundo, you can make the first mini-boss of Spring Breeze, Poppy Brothers Sr., an absolute joke. Or more than he would be otherwise. Simply inhale this first Poppy and attack him with it, no issues there, very easy. Then get really close and wait for Poppy Sr. to throw a bomb. Then either jump into it or guard, and guess what? Bosses will take damage in KSS if they attack, and you're close enough to hit them with that attack, so BAM! He dead! And you killed him in quite literally the funniest way possible. What could be even better than that? After that insanity, I'm not sure what I could say about Dreamland 2 or Dreamland 3 that could top it. Dreamland 2 is the simpler one, so we'll start there. And it's simpler because there really isn't much. Of course, the Dreamland 2 run requires a lot of knowledge and skill to be ran at a high level, and world record contender runners are amazing at the game for getting times that they get. I seriously have no idea how they could ever do it. Let me tell you, that ain't me. It's just kind of less exciting to talk about for the sake of a video like this. Although, I guess the RNG manipulation for 6-4 is pretty epic. Basically, you have to get rid of Ku for 6-2, that's just the way the game is made, but you have no means of getting him back until 6-4. This isn't so bad since 6-3 has a lot of areas where Ku would really slow you down, but to get Ku in 6-4, you have to hope RNG is on your side. Thus, after you soft reset when beating Mr. Shine and Mr. Bright. In World 5, you can carry the RNG manipulation from the very beginning of the world to the mini-boss fight of 6-4, needing to be beaten before getting a random animal buddy. If you took advantage of the RNG like a good manipulator, wow, please don't ever say that out of context. I feel disgusting just for saying it. You can get Ku instead of, I don't know, like Rick or something. Ugh. Dreamland 3, on the other hand, looks largely similar. There's some cool Ku tech, kinda is neat for World 2, but as a Super Nintendo game, proper RNG manipulation is much harder, if not impossible. What makes Dreamland 3 more interesting, aside from the whole thumb dexterity versus turbo controller debate, that's a good one, is Gooey, your good buddy, who you can use to infinitely gain more health if you're low enough. It's easy enough to explain. When you spawn Gooey, you lose some health to make way for his health bar. When you ditch Gooey, though, not only is he very sad and you should feel bad, but do it anyway, time is of the essence here, the game assumes you summoned him with 1 extra point of health than you actually did, since you get more HP as solo Kirby than Kirby and Gooey. This is, of course, not even going into the insane 2-player strats that you can pull off. Dreamland 3 is the only classic game to really have multiplayer strats, aside from, like, Wheelie Rider mashing and KSS. Not that exciting. But you know what? I really wish it wasn't the only one, because these strats go off! As early as 1-6, or Grassland 6, you can use Rick to clip through the ceiling of a wall after jumping by attacking and dismounting on the same frame. This is actually pretty easy, but with just Kirby, you can only do this once. It's not worth it to ditch Ku for this. But with GUI controlled by a human, that human being you, of course, things change. Now, GUI can hop on Rick, and Kirby can run around collecting stuff as GUI and Rick can warp around the screen as per Kirby's whims and desires. Now, to very briefly dip into spin-offs before wrapping things up, they don't follow the rules quite so closely, but they're still all very easy to pick up and learn. Dream Course is the only exception to this, but you can even make that easier by avoiding curve shots. Sticking to normal and bounce shots with abilities is easy enough to learn. I'm also partial to categories like Tilt and Tumble any percent with the skips, Superstar Stacker Story mode, and on the right day, even something like Pinball Land can be pretty fun. Block Ball too, not that I'm gonna really have much to say about it, but say it with me, everybody. When am I ever gonna get the chance? Oh, and I'm not sure if this counts, but break the targets and board the platforms from Smash 64 for Kirby? Pretty great. All of these games and categories largely follow the anyone can pick these up, but they still reward those who put in the time methodology. But since they're spin-offs and this video is getting a bit long, with a capital L, capital O, capital N, and capital G, we'll begin wrapping things up. There really aren't any games like the classic Kirby's. Even future Kirby games, while holding on to the greatness of accessibility that I've been talking about for this whole video, never quite hit the consistency that the classics did. And I'm saying this as someone who largely prefers running later games to these. Overall, you could convince me that this is my least favorite era of speedrunning Kirby, or you could do the exact same thing, but instead make the case that it's my favorite, and like, I don't know, I'd buy into either. It's just so consistent with constant bangers that I can run literally whenever I want. There's a reason why I run the classic games any percent category at least once a year, despite that run taking over 6 hours. I just can't see myself doing that for any other group of Kirby games. Even if totally isolated, I tend to prefer running those. It's mostly due to stuff like quality of life, less RNG, easier to control, all that jazz for the modern games compared to the classics. But to answer the question posed at the beginning of the video, yes, the classic Kirby games have stood the test of time remarkably well. It's even easier to make a case for them being amazing casually, but even when we're taking them really seriously, they're still just as fresh and fun now as they were when they were new. It's insane to think we're still pushing these games to their limits after all these years, some of them for longer than I've even been alive, but that's just part of the magic of it all. Cheers again to 34 more years of excellent Kirby games and excellent Kirby speedruns. For now though, I have been Claire, thank you all so very much for watching, and I will see you around. Bye-bye!